Blessings in Jesus, dear friends. James Jacob Prash from Morial Ministries here, doing a hot take on what has been developing in England. I am presently in New York City. I just got in from Great Britain. I was joined in the States by Pastor Marco Quintana, and Pastor Tim Leach, who's also now in New York. We will be having meetings at the Church of the Open Door in New York City and in Baltimore on Saturday and Sunday. However, right now we're doing Catching Up with Jacob. Major news has broke in the ecclesiastical front, of course, in Great Britain, and it's gone around the world, and it's received a due amount of headline coverage in a number of countries, particularly countries where the Church of England or Anglicanism is prominent. Now, the Church of England can come under different names. In the United States, it's normally referred to as Episcopalianism. Other countries, it's just referred to as Anglicanism, but it comes from the Church of England. Its titular head is the British monarch. When King Henry VIII broke with the Roman Catholic Church, he did so because of his desire to divorce Catherine of Aragon, which the Pope, for political reasons, would not approve of, and would not give him a dispensation to divorce Catherine of Aragon, so he could remarry someone else, seeking a male heir to the British throne. Henry VIII was not a very nice man. He killed 74,000 of his own people. He had 6 wives. Some of them were beheaded by him. And among other things, he opposed the Reformation initially. He tried to persuade Erasmus of Rotterdam to intellectually debate Luther, when in fact it was Erasmus of Rotterdam who spurned Luther on to write the 95 Theses. Many people attribute the Reformation to Luther. In fact, Zwingli began his reforms in Zurich before Luther's 95 Theses in Germany. But it was all inherited. It was all engendered by the New Testament published by Erasmus of Rotterdam, who went back to the original meaning of the original Greek texts as opposed to English translations or the Latin Vulgate. He also wrote such classical works as Julius Exclusus and the Praise of Folly, exposing the open corruption of the Vatican, the papacy, or the Vatican that was under construction, and so forth. Henry VIII tried to persuade this same Erasmus, who initiated the Reformation, at least causally. It's often been said that Erasmus laid the egg, Luther hatched it, to debate Luther and oppose the Reformation. So Henry VIII, the founder of the Church of England, was no friend of the Reformation or of Reform or of Protestantism, or certainly not of evangelicism. He opposed it. His theocratic henchman was Cardinal Wolsey. Cardinal Wolsey murdered William Tyndale for translating the Bible into English. He murdered him at the behest of Henry VIII. Henry VIII was not a believer. The Church of England was institutionally not anything that was born out of a concern to get back to the Word of God in any sense or reform the church. It was all politics. After Henry, however, there were people who came along who tried to reform the Church of England. These were believers. These included the first Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer Ridley, Nicholas Ridley, Bishop John Hooper, Hugh Latimer, and others, the Oxford martyrs, all of whom were burned by Queen Mary, a daughter of Henry who tried to re-Catholicize England during the period of the early Reformation. This was the Church of England, and I have maintained for some years that those saints of God, those martyrs like William Tyndale, like Ridley, Latimer, and Hooper, and Cranmer, would be out the door of the Church of England today faster than they were out the door of the Church of Rome in the 16th century. In its most depraved state, the Church of Rome has not sunk to the level that the Church of England has sunk to today. We speak now of the present scandals that has led to the forced resignation of Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury. As the British monarch takes the place of the Pope as a figurehead head of the church. The ecclesiastical head of the church and hierarchy is the Archbishop of Canterbury, whose headquarters is in Lambeth Palace in London, roughly the Anglican equivalent of the Vatican. Not far from Parliament on the opposite side of the river, this is Lambeth. And he has resigned. He has resigned for the same reason that Pope Benedict retired. He was caught protecting pedophiles, child abusers. One in particular, a homosexual sadist who was into the beating of minors, brutally beating them as a form of sexual entertainment, inflicting physical injuries on them with bleeding and so forth. He did this in England. Then he went and did it in Africa, in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. Of course, in South Africa, we had Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of Cape Town, who said he would not worship a homophobic God and who said he does not want to go to a homophobic heaven. He'd rather go to the other place. And the following Christmas, Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, God gave him a Christmas present and he got his wish. He seems to have gone to the other place. Tutu was keen on ordaining Anglican priestesses into the Anglican communion. This is Anglicanism. Now, not all Anglicanism is like that. You have Anglican believers in Nigeria and other countries who are saved Christians who have broken, or at least functionally broken, with Lambeth and with the Archbishop of Canterbury. But this scandal has been shocking in England. No Archbishop of Canterbury has ever had to resign before, and he's resigning for the same kind of scandal that has characterized so much of Roman Catholicism in Britain, in Ireland, in the United States, in Australia, in New Zealand, and elsewhere. The cover-ups have been unbelievable. The fact that Welby knew this and allowed it to go on and took no action, protecting a sex criminal named Smythe at the expense of not protecting Anglican children, much the same as the Vatican and Cardinal Law and Cardinal Mahoney and Cardinal McKendrick in the USA protected pedophile Roman Catholic priests at the expense of not protecting their own children. It is not purely a Roman Catholic phenomena, though mainly a Roman Catholic phenomena. But why Anglican? These scandals of pedophilia have happened elsewhere, particularly Canada, among Anglicans, because the High Church, as it's known, the High Church of the Church of England, is liturgical. It uses English instead of Latin, but like Roman Catholicism, it is sacramental. Its priests are celibate, which of course Paul says is a doctrine of demons forbidding marriage. They believe salvation comes by sacraments. They're into praying to the dead, the necromancy, everything Roman Catholicism has, except using King Charles instead of the Pope and having an Archbishop of Canterbury in Lambeth instead of a Vatican, and having English instead of what had been traditionally Latin. This is the Church of England. It is never completely broken with Rome. It never completely broke with Rome. It had an evangelical branch that did or sought to, but the High Church never did. And institutionally, its founder, Henry VIII, was not somebody who believed in the Reformation. He opposed it. He had Tyndale murdered along with Cardinal Wolsey. Well, Welby's gone. Who's going to replace him? Here is the Anglican saga of sadness. Whoever the socialist Prime Minister of England appoints, with the approval of a House of Parliament comprised of atheists, Roman Catholics, Freemasons, Hindus, and an increasing number of Muslims. This is the British Parliament. Many of the Anglicans who are members of Parliament are purely there nominally. It's their religion. They don't have a personal saving faith. There are very few saved believers in Parliament, and the ones that are largely not Anglican. They're from Northern Ireland or an odd individual elsewhere. So you're going to have members of Parliament who are Muslims, who are Freemasons, who are atheists, deciding who's going to take the place of Justin Welby. Justin Welby is unJustin Sickby. The man was horrific. However, his fall did not come out of a vacuum. His fall and the public exposure of what he did and what he is followed his other actions. I will name two. He compromised massively on homosexual and lesbian ordination, on the ordination of women bishops, and on same-sex marriage. Within the Anglican Synod, he was an agent of compromise on these issues, to the point of it becoming hypocritically ridiculous. As they didn't call it a wedding, they called it something else and had a civil ceremony in addition to a religious one to technically and semantically get around calling it a same-sex wedding, but it amounts to the same thing. He's purely a theocratic animal, theocratic politics. He went along with the same-sex agenda, the homosexual ordination agenda, the lesbian ordination agenda, the female priestess agenda, etc. The second performance he gave recently was his very biased attack on Israel. Not giving due notice, he came out publicly and condemned Israel's reaction to the October 7th attacks of 2023 by Hamas. He understated the crimes that Hamas has committed against its own civilian population. Just this week, I was watching film clips of Hamas torturing Arab Muslims, torturing their own people. Not to mention shooting at Israeli civilians and then using their own civilians as human shields, including children, women, the elderly, storing weapons and munitions and ordnance in mosques, in hospitals, and in schools, as well as in United Nations Relief and Works Agencies facilities. And yet, Welby finds place to criticize Israel, bringing accusations against Israel for defending itself. Right now, there are Black Africans being slaughtered by Islamic militias in Darfur and Africa again. There are about 10.5 million Black African refugees facing starvation. The numbers killed are unbelievable. Yet, not much is said by the mainstream media, and not much is said by Welby. No, it's Israel he had to go after, in a very biased reaction to Israel's self-defense. Israel did not provoke this war or conflict. I will bless them that bless thee. I will curse them that curse thee. He's generally been a hypocrite. He's generally been a purveyor of ecumenism. He has generally behaved like a religious hypocrite and a protector of pedophile sex criminals. And he has cursed Israel. You touch the apple of God's eye. I'll bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. For any one of those things, he should have been forced to resign. But for the synergistic combination of those things, he's resigned in disgrace. His name will perpetually remain etched in mud, and he's brought it on himself. May the Lord have mercy on the rest of us. But as for the Church of England itself, You're going to a church that'll have a new archbishop now, appointed by Mr. Starmer, a socialist, approved of by a king of England who used the Grand Duchy of Cornwall, his trust, to fund the construction of a mosque. It was Welby who anointed him king. And now he's the titular head of the Church of England, waiting for the replacement for Welby as the Archbishop of Canterbury. That the British Parliament, its membership, its Muslims, its Masons, its atheists will decide on the successor of Welby. That is the Church of England. That is the kingpin of the Anglican Communion. That is what it is. I do not understand how any born-again believer in the Lord Jesus can remain party to that system. In cases like this, I always point to the statement by Jesus in Revelation 18:4. Lest you participate in her sins, you share in her plagues. How can you be part of a system like that? So it is. That is the reality. People in England are shocked. They shouldn't be. Anglicans are shocked. They shouldn't be. If anything, they should have expected it. Thank you so very much.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode, catching up with Jacob. And at this moment, Jacob is not feeling well, but you did hear and listen to him just prior to coming us live. And he did a segment on the Church of England. So he has been with us, but he's not feeling well. Please pray for him. But we do have David Lister. How are you, David?
I'm here today.
You're here
Beautiful
today.
day.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. And Jay, how are you, Jay? Not too far from my house.
I'm doing good. So glad to be riding shotgun instead of holding the reins.
Thanks, Jay. Great job. And I'm glad to be back to a rainy California. So I'm not sure if I brought the English weather here, but it is a rainy and colder day today. We've had some really good shiny days, sunshines the last couple of days, but it is wet today. And getting into, well, he's also not too far from my house, even though it is getting summer in Australia. Davey, how are you this morning?
Yeah, doing pretty good, thanks, Marco. And at least one good thing, we are getting glimpses of blue sky here. I don't think we saw too many blue skies while we were in the UK or Scotland.
Not at all. Well, some days were, and other days there weren't. But anyway, that was good. So thank you for joining us. Those who are watching live, those who will watch later. Just a couple of announcements before we get started. David, you got any?
Yes, this coming week, Saturday and Sunday here in Devore, Tim and Jacob will be teaching on both days starting at 10.
That's next week.
Oh, that's what next week. Coming this next week. And then after that, we're headed to Florida for Thanksgiving weekend gathering down in Crystal River. Details for all this is on the website. And also, if you're considering coming, it's good that you get the application in because we're filling up. And so do that as ASAP because we have to know how many to reserve. And so please go online, get the application, get it in. Okay?
Amen.
Don't want y'all shut out.
Yeah, but don't do it last minute. Don't do it last minute. And that can get a little crazy. So thank you, David.
Even the Lord has a time when the door's shut, isn't it?
Even the Lord shuts the door. Amen. Amen. Davey, we'll go to you. You have a quick thank you and an announcement real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, I basically just wanted to thank everyone for praying for us while we were in the UK and Scotland. So a very, very big thank you to the Community Church of Devore, especially to Karen for organising the prayer list and prayer chain, and also for those back in Australia who are praying for us and are still praying for us. In particular, a big thank you to my brother Jaden, to Margaret and Sue in particular, and Bill and Heather. Thank you guys so much. We've really appreciated your prayers. They've been so valued.
Thank you, Davey. Absolutely. And God gets things done through prayer. He gets things done through prayer. And through prayer, he works. So thank you guys so much for your prayers. They were felt, absolutely. And we wanted to thank everyone that was at the conference, both in Scotland and in England, for Jacob, for Pastor Tim, for those who participated, for Margaret, for Beryl, and those who helped her, Peter and Beryl in England, those who helped out. Amazing. And I was so blessed. I was there to try to encourage and bless the congregations that were there, the remnant that was there. And I came away blessed and encouraged. So I really wanted to thank those who attended and those who have been watching and those who have made some gracious comments about the conference. They did a great job. And the Lord was really glorified. The believers were being uplifted. So it was a wonderful time to be there. And I was so blessed and encouraged by the young people that came, the older people too, but the young people that came, you were a great blessing as well. There's not that many young people that really want to know the word and hunger for the word. So really encourage and praying for the believers in Scotland and in England as well. And by God's grace, maybe we'll come back and see you guys again. So grow in the Lord and in the grace and the knowledge of Jesus Christ. So praise the Lord.
Marco, are those teachings up anywhere for people?
I believe so, although I don't have them with me, but I believe they were posted on RTN, and RTN sent them over to us. Jay, I don't know if you got them already or not. I think they were sending them to you.
He sent one segment, and that one is posted, but that's the only one I've received thus far.
Can you tell them where it's posted?
Yeah, grab them all.
It's on Rumble. It's on Rumble, and it is also on Twitter. And right now, we can't post to Morial, but when Morial TV YouTube is unlocked.
Oh, they did a strike against us. I heard of
it. Wasn't me. It wasn't me.
This time it was not David.
I didn't get the honor of doing it. So.
It was me. Sorry.
Oh, what did you say about Fauci?
I didn't say anything about Fauci. It was about Bill Gates, and they didn't like that one.
They ran a cover for him. They ran a cover for him. So the messages are all done. There are on RTN, but we do need to get them over to the Morial YouTube site. So once the strike is over, they will be. But they're on Rumble now, right, Jay?
They are on Rumble right now. Yeah.
So all of them, or just one?
Just one of them. So I'll have to grab the others from RTN and post them. I think that's session 3 in Scotland right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. So praise the Lord for that, and get encouraged by the believers there. They're going through a really, really hard time. You think believers in America are going through difficulties. Yes, that's true. There's much more in England and in Scotland, and in the remnant, it's a lot smaller. Obviously, population is a lot smaller too. So with that said, if you want to listen to us on podcasts, you can catch us on podcasts. You can catch us, except on YouTube this week, as of some of the censorship that goes on. But we are on Rumble. We are on Telegram. We are on Vimeo. We are on Facebook Live. Is that right, Jay? Did we go to Facebook? Okay. We are increasingly seeing better numbers on X. And of course, RTN, Morial TV, it's coming pretty soon with some newer, a newer platform. So please keep us in prayer for that. Morial.tv. It's going to look nice. It's going to be great. So praise the Lord for that. So in the meantime, catch us on podcasts, catch us live, catch us on the videos that are posted already. If you watch this episode, will be posted later. And of course, you can catch the conferences on Rumble. We'll have all the rest of the videos up there, but they are on RTN right now, so you can catch them there as well. I don't think there's anything else. We do want to welcome those who are watching.
Really quickly, Marco, just so everyone knows, the Morial Conference is Session 1, The Velocity of Prophecy is the title.
In England. Yeah, that's the English one.
Oh, so I don't have the Scottish ones. I only have,
I don't
that's the
think
only
we-
one that was sent.
Yeah, I don't think they posted it. And then you bring up a good point, and I don't know when they're going to be posted because there were so many new things that we talked about in there, including some of Jacob's content for the book. I think that's what they're waiting on. And there was some new messages that we did there. So keep those things in prayer. I don't know when they're going to be released, but I guess the anticipation makes the heart grow fonder. So you can, you at some point are going to get them, and they're really, really good. I was so blessed by the messages there. And so, so far, I think the English ones have been posted, but you're right. I think the Scottish ones were being held a little bit longer. And I think some of them are going to be held a little bit longer than we expect because of Jacob's book and the content of the book. And he talked a lot about that. So that's going to be delayed a little bit. But the other ones, I think, will be posted soon. So let us be patient, but you can get the English ones pretty soon. So actually, you can get them right now on RTN, but we'll get them on Morial pretty soon. So thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. Been a complication, but I think it's because of the content of the messages that were there in Scotland. So we really want to encourage the people to come. And those who came and were live got really blessed. They got really blessed. Jacob did a great job. So with all that said, let's catch up. Oh, hold on.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out especially to those who traveled to the conferences too. It was great to see people there from Switzerland, from Poland, and look, it'd be too many names to mention all, but I do want to give a shout out to the Beaches Church there in Chipping Norton too. You guys were very encouraging.
All right. Well, let's catch up and all the stuff that's going on. And David, we'll start with you. Actually, we'll start with all of us here. But David, you get the first shot. A critical point in our society. This is our post-election video with all of us together. Obviously, Jacob was here, but he's ill. But one of the things that came out, David, and we were on live on election night, the absolute madness that is the residue, especially among young ladies after the election was called for Trump. The brainwashed masses, especially for young ladies, who are being absolutely manipulated, and they're losing, I would say their mind, they're losing all kind of perspective on reality because of Trump's win, so far as now going on, well, narcissistically, going on and filming themselves, cutting off their hair, vowing not to have sex with men, and not to have children with men, and not to marry. And now they weren't doing that anyway, from the original thought. They weren't doing that anyway. But now they are absolutely adamant that they are going to go into lesbianism, bisexual lifestyle. David, this is, we can make fun of it, and it certainly is comical to see how far this has gone, especially among young women, but among young men as well. What are your thoughts on this? Because there are even women who are divorcing their husbands, leaving their boyfriends, going into lesbianism, even some of them going into trying to poison their husbands and getting lots and lots of views on these videos. Husbands that voted for Trump, because overwhelmingly men voted for Trump. So your thoughts on this?
Well, first off, for me, it was really, really sad because I knew what the Democrats were saying to these young people and to these women about how disgusting Trump was, a dictator, all sorts of vile things and lies over and over. And they become brainwashed. I actually saw them as being brainwashed. And the residual effect is that they've somewhat lost their mind in that they have the one mindset like a cult. And the irresponsibility that the Democrats have shown with this and the damage it has caused to these women is beyond the pale. And to me, it's, they have to be deprogrammed. They have to try to be made to come back to wholeness because they've really been scarred by believing that all these things that they've said about Trump world, for lack of a better term, is that how bad that he's going to abuse things. People like Whoopi Goldberg said that he's going to break up mixed marriages and send women back. And I know that this came out of Korea, this 4B movement, because the women over there feel like they don't have equal rights. Well, I'm not fully familiar of all the rights over there in Korea, but I do know here most everything that has been told to these women has been a lie. That Trump is going to do a complete abortion ban. No, he turned it back to the states. It's now he can't even do anything more because the Supreme Court has ruled that abortion is state by state issue. So it just doesn't make sense. But most of these people have not had fifth grade civic lessons. And they would know that once the Supreme Court rules, it's the rule of the land. And then also just the many other lies that he's a dictator. Even people like Charlemagne Tagad is questioning, well, if he's a dictator, how come he says, Biden said, welcome back to being in the White House? Like for us that have been through many elections, it's just another election. We've changed. Democracy in our constitutional republic worked. And the Democrats are now in big trouble because they have wiped out 31 states have voted against Kamala, and great gains were made by Trump in all sorts of groups, including minorities of Hispanic, blacks, and other groups that see him as being a good man. And these scenes that the news media, they understand now the news media is lying to them. And this is sad, and they need to be held responsible for the disinformation, the misinformation that they've fed to these women. And their emotional states are fragile and self-destructive, things that I've dealt with in cults for most of my adult life, and the deprogramming that's going to have to happen. Not deprogramming in the sense of that, but they just got to be helped. They need to be prayed for and need to be helped out of this bad situation their minds have slipped into.
Yeah, thanks, David. We'll go to Jay real quick. Jay, a spiritual condition, obviously the mental condition is there, believing things that are not even real. I mean, we're talking about reality, the suspension of reality, and not even seeing things as they are. Some people thinking that they go back to slavery. Some people think, as David pointed out, that they're going to ban, every single right that they have, and they're going to go back to some handmaiden tale. But is it a spiritual condition as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a Romans 1 issue. It's for they exchange the truth of God for falsehood and worship and serve the creature rather than the creator. They have put feminism, they have put transsexualism, they've put all these different isms in place of God. And what has it done? Well, it says, for this reason, God gave them over to degrading passions. For the women exchanged natural relations. These women have made their new God, and their new God is a goddess, a false goddess, and it's third wave feminism. And so, first of all, also when you talk about the West, specifically the United States, we're not South Korea. And the consequences that South Korea is now facing because of the 4B movement, it will cease to be a nation. In about 35 years, they will no longer have enough children. Sorry.
I think the birth rate is like 1.1. I mean, they're on the teetering below 1. I mean, it's just crazy.
1.6. You're not replacing yourself.
Yeah, South Korea is going that way. Japan's going that way because, again, you have the issue that women don't want to have children; they want to have a career. And like I said, the women have exchanged their God, the true God, with feminism, and it's sad, And also, there's a million videos out there of what women despise, and it's men in Thailand with their girlfriends going home, and they're angry because they seem to have a good relationship, but women in the West are angry with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the shaving of the head is really interesting. I'm gonna come back to David Lister in a minute. But David, you wanted to share something. We watched those videos when we were there because we were traveling along, and it was a form of entertainment. I don't doubt, and I'm not saying it wasn't entertainment to see this, but the sadness that came about afterwards, and some of these women are now being censored. And you won't believe why, because they're being insensitive, says TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. They're being insensitive to the alopecia community because shaving their head and doing all kinds of crazy stuff on TikTok, and they're being censored because they're not being sensitive to the alopecia community. It's funny how the left and the censorship movement comes back and eats themselves. But anyway, David, your thoughts?
Well, look, I think it's great. Actually think this is a win-win situation because, look, I really hope this spreads, not because I delight in seeing, mental illness go, through the roof and crazy and all the rest of it, but because this is going to hurt the abortion industry. This is going to hurt the pharmaceutical industry. This is going to hurt the cosmetic industry. I think this is a great thing. This might be one way we can might help topple Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry, and the contraceptives, the abortion drugs. Look, I think this is great. I think women who are like this, but it's crazy too. They're having their tubes tied. The woke men are having vasectomies. Seriously, this is just insane. But I really hope this impacts greatly on the abortion industry, and I hope that it really hurts them in the pocket.
Yeah,
David,
I'm going to come back to you. That they're saying they're not going to have sex. Many of them are stocking Plan B and those abortion pills. So it's like you see a disconnect right there. We're not going to have sex, but let's get abortion pills.
Well, they won't last long being celibate because that's not who they are.
Yeah.
Whoever Trump is a liberal birth control. He's becoming a liberal birth control. So maybe we should thank God for that. Now we can identify them very easily now in terms of who they are. And it's almost like they've come out. It's almost like, they have this big issue about coming out of the closet in the LGBT community. Well, they're come out of the closet in terms of who they are as an anti-God, anti-family, completely and atheism, feminism. It's all the isms coming in together as one. But some delusions too. They're trying to poison their husbands with the 17th century. I think it was called aqua tofana, which was a 17th century. They used it in Sicily to kill abusive husbands secretly. Now they're making it again. It's made from flowers. I think it's some Italian flowers and herbs and tea. So it is bizarre. It is a bizarre world that we stepped into. And the one thing, David, I wanted you to comment on is the CEO of NPR. Her name is Catherine Marr. She says, I think the reverence for the truth might become a bit of a distraction that's preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done. The reverence for the truth, she says, it's getting in the way of finding consensus. But this has been the problem, isn't it? We've lost the ability to tell the truth and what truth is. And we've told these kids all these, everything's relevant, and has led to this. Your comment on what the NPR CEO said.
Yeah. Basically, they don't know the truth. And God himself is in a strong delusion on these people because they've lost the love of the knowledge of the truth. You watch how they can only lie. They prefer the lie. And when they want to tell something that's true, even then, they can't do it. I've watched this many, many places. I've seen it with Hamas. I've seen it with women. I've seen it with people that are in the woke movement. I've seen it on the news media. They prefer the lie, even when they're corrected right there with a video of Trump saying this, they still hold to the lie. They can't. It's again, exactly what Jay said a few minutes ago. This is Romans 1. They've been turned over. They have a spirit of error.
You can imagine, many times when you read the Bible, you kind of see, you put yourself in that situation. You can imagine society, whether it was Sodom and Gomorrah, whether it was Egypt, whether it was first century Rome, whether it was the northern kingdom of Israel, during the time of Elijah and Elisha, whether it was Judah, time of Jeremiah, even at the time of our Lord, people did not have any concept of truth anymore. Even if they were religious, which you see a lot of churches going in that direction, they have the form of godliness, but deny the power of the gospel, the power of the Spirit in the personal life of a person through a relationship with Jesus. So we have gone into some of an antediluvian condition, the time of Noah. So this is where people have lost the truth. They went into erratic, subhuman behavior, and yet they wanted to destroy those who persisted against them, those who they thought were against them. So this is where we are as a nation. It's comical on one end, but it's extremely sad. Jay, I want to ask you this, because I asked this question to when we were at the conference in England. How do we reach people like this? We can make fun of them, but the sad part is these are people on the way to hell. And these are people that have no reality of who God is, the truth of Jesus, the gospel, let alone the deep things of Scripture. How do we even begin to reach out to them in the sense where are they too far gone? I guess my question.
I mean, we're not going to be the ones. All we can do is tell them the truth and bear the anger and the and the tantrum that's going to follow from telling them the truth, since they are given over to a lie. We can repeat it, and then we can show them love. We can show them understanding that. But at the end of the day, only God can reach a heart that is so depraved.
Of course.
And
Of course.
by the way, I say that knowing that at one point my heart was just as bad, just as flawed. But it God used many people to sow into me, and then those words ringed back in my ears in those moments when I was desperate. So at that point, we just have to be faithful to sow. I mean, I think it's Psalm 146 says, those who sow with tears will reap with joy. We have to continue to just be faithful to do that.
And the
So
point
they
you're
can be
making
reached.
is that we have to do it. I mean, that's really the point, because so many Christians, they see this evil, and it is evil, and they see this just complete madness, and they shy away from it. They're gun shy about it. They don't witness. They don't talk about it. I mean, we're talking about it in Canada, talking about it in England. It's the encouragement to the body to do it, because largely the church has become disobedient, even among the remnant have become disobedient when it comes to sharing the gospel, making disciples. I know we talk about it, but it is we need that action that truly happens, because otherwise society would be left to their own, to their own devices. They will naturally become extinct in this, because they don't have, look, they're into homosexuality, right? Lesbianism, right? Self-sterilization, and of course the killing of the babies, the abortion. So they will become extinct, and it is a terrible thing for one person to be lost, but a whole generation, Jay, a whole generation of young people.
Well, we have to understand that this is by design. I mean, the media and academia, they've all prepared this kind of thought. They've taken away critical thinking, and they've given them, here's the narrative you must believe if you want to be educated, if you want to be sophisticated. We're overpopulated. We have to get rid of children. We have to get rid of the nuclear family. Everything in society and everything in the media, the current media as we have it, is against traditional family values.
Yeah.
Because they don't want humans to reproduce.
Yeah, and you can see that. You can see the embodiment of this generation. Call it Generation Z, call it millennial, call it whatever. They simply don't like the traditional marriage. That they've been told that it is wrong. I want to change real quick the topic. The corruption in the Harris campaign. David Lister, we're back to you. What else is new? But they spent so much money on this political, identity politics, the celebrity mindset to get all these celebrities to come. They spent so much money on celebrities to come and endorse them. Now they're in debt, and now there's some accusations of money laundering, because she basically took all the money that was spent or sent to the Democratic Party, funneled it to all these people, that funneled it right back into her personally, perhaps. And not saying that necessarily yet, but that is what's being investigated. And of course, now they're asking for more money because they want to recount. They want to recount and says, send us money. We're going to get it. We're going to get back in the White House if you send us more money. how have they lost their mind in this?
I don't know how they're going to get back to connecting the people to come back and say,
Yeah, that's my
look,
question, David. Are they going to recycle these same talking points and policies? Because people just had enough.
they're trying to. And what, like the freedom on X to be able to expose these people has caused legacy media to stumble and fall. They're leaving X, they're leaving, and MSNBC is getting rid of the talent. CNN is in the toilet. They're being forced to hire conservative commentators to come on their program. I forgot the guy's name on CNN. He destroys them.
Yes.
They can't do anything. They have to take it now, and it's killing them. And but I loved how they were blaming everybody but themselves. And they're hypocrites because they don't want to admit that they thought they knew what they were doing and that everybody would vote for them, because for so long they have put blacks in their column, Hispanics in their column, women in their column. They put everybody like that, and for years they knew they would vote for them.
Yeah.
But blacks were starting to say, "Wait a minute, you'll come and visit us every 4 years, and then we don't hear from you for 4 more years." Yeah. So they got tired of it.
Yeah.
And so this has been their downfall, is they've lost any touch with who they actually represent. But they still, at this moment, don't want to they still don't want to change their policies. They still they want to be liberal. Right now, they're trying to spend all the money they can on Ukraine. Trump's been against that. They still want to have, have the trans movement and sterilization of children, and the government paying for sex changes in prison. All these things that Trump stood against, they're still wanting to hold on to them. And look, if people are smart, they will take these things, what they're saying and what they're doing, and they'll use them against them. And what can happen is that in 2 years, when we go back to the polls, we can blame these Democrats for trying to stall Trump, trying to work against Trump, trying to do all these things. And we could actually pick up another 30 seats in the House, maybe even 40 in some of the vulnerable areas, even in California, because you guys took it and changed a lot of districts in California. And a lot of places, New Jersey, Trump was in 5 points of a solid blue. So anyway, there's some good things that have coming out of their stupidity.
Yeah, but you don't think they're changing. You don't think they're changing. That was
not at this point, because they can't even figure out
who they really are.
They to blame themselves for their own problem. They're starting to come around, and they're all blaming Biden, but he's got the Trump hat on. Probably even voted for Trump, and they want him to do stupid things. They've all stabbed him in the back.
Yep, absolutely.
And he pulled the knives out. He's smiling. He might have voted for Trump, and he's going to, I believe, and I would not blame him, pardon his own son and walk out into history. And the reason I say he will pardon his son is because he's lost one son. He doesn't have a lot of years left. And if he does it, I would not blame him, or because he wants to at least have his son around for his father.
Yeah, and he cares about his legacy for sure. Yeah. I wanted to ask you this, David, since we're switching gears real quick, about Trump's picks for his cabinet. Obviously, they haven't been confirmed yet, but there's quite a bit of them, and some interesting ones from Musk Elon Musk to try to run the government of efficiency, DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. Let's start with that one. Secretary of State. Some people think he's a globalist, he's a rhino and all this stuff, but you've heard him talk about Israel and how the need to defend the Jewish people and against persecution of Christians. So your thoughts on Rubio real quick.
Well, he has been in his position against a lot of the stuff. People call him a China hawk. So China is going to be one of our biggest problems.
That's right.
He knows China inside and out as far as an American can know them. And so he'll be a good face to go over there and work. And hopefully, and China has already said, hey, Trump, we want to work a deal.
Friend. Yeah.
Because they know, see, China is in trouble. Their economy is hurting. They've got deflation right now. But I think I think he'll do good. And I think Trump's going to take him under his wing and help him be a good Secretary of State and possibly one of the futures of the Republican Party.
Yeah, he's been a senator for a while.
He's young.
Yeah, he's very young. Kristi Noem, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. This is an interesting one because that's been a disaster, a total disaster the last year. So what do you think? Kristi Noem, DHS, they love
woman can shoot her own dog and still survive, like a rogue dog. Anyway.
Yeah.
She's a strong woman. She knows what's going on. She's a competent leader since, South Dakota is doing great. I even at one time was thinking about going up there and becoming a citizen because you only have to go one day a year and you can be a citizen and claim all the tax benefits and stuff. So she's a smart woman. I think she'll be fine, and I don't think she'll take any crap off of any of these guys that want to mess around in security and intelligence.
She's tough. And I give you this. Out of all the states, she was the first one, him and DeSantis in Florida, to send troops, to send actually National Guard troops to help Texas with what was going on. So kudos to her. And you're right, David, when the COVID-19, all that stuff was going on, she was one of the ones that helped South Dakota transition very quickly. And they became very successful because all the states, like here in California, shutting down and the economy was shot. South Dakota.
Her kids are caught up, are fine.
What about, let's do this one. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel.
Okay, Mike Huckabee loves Israel. He's been over there since I think he was 17 or 18. He's been going. He said at one point he's been there 100 times. So he's a friend of Israel. He'll be the right ambassador. I would encourage people to write him and tell him, please don't let Trump divide Jerusalem, because all these Arab nations are asking for East Jerusalem, and of course that means Judea and Samaria. Judea and Samaria belongs to Israel, and we don't want to divide Jerusalem because there's a curse in it. Look, I think we should have peace there. And also he knows about the temple. He knows about all these things. He is evangelical.
Right.
I don't like, he's a little too ecumenical for me and hangs out with some false prophets and everything. But I think he'll be a good ambassador for Trump's policies towards Israel. But please, everybody, email him, tell him, don't divide Jerusalem.
Yeah, very, very good. I skipped one, David. I should have gone back after Kristi Noem, but Tom Homan, the border czar. Boy, this guy's tough, isn't he?
Oh, he's a cop. And he knew Trump was going to run before the world knew he was going to run. And Trump had asked him, will you come back? He said, I'll come back for free. He humiliates people like AOC. He was like a dad taking his daughter to the woodshed. She goes, oh, at the end. That was all she could say. when he
what
told
else
them,
did he
"Look,
say? He said some really dumb things, and he straightened her out. And he said,
yeah,
"That's
he straightened her out,
yeah,
you know, and there's nothing they can do." And look, he is a cop. He's top cop, and he's going to follow the law, and he's going to remove these people. And if they see, I think the Democrats want to line up and try to stall and keep these immigrants in these sanctuary things. But there's no such thing as a sanctuary city because we have federal law that overrules city
That's
and
right.
state law.
that's right."
He can flood a city and go in there and round these people up. And I guarantee you, cops in Los Angeles and all these places, they're not going to fight against them. They may not be allowed to do anything to help them, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some communications that can come from police to help, because the cops don't like these bad guys. They want them out because cops are God's anointed servants, and they are to hold back evil. And I think many of them that are good cops are called to protecting the people. And I think they would secretly want to help them and things like this. These sanctuary cities are not going to be allowed because the people, hey, what are you doing? We've got these criminals. They're taking over my apartment buildings. They're shooting people. They're intimidating us. People want to get rid of them. Even in San Francisco, even in L.A., you had this crazy actress called Eva Longoria. She says, "Oh, I'm leaving the U.S."
Hopefully.
No, she's already left the U.S. because she's been spending her time in Mexico and Spain.
Yeah.
And the reason she left, she said, is because of the high taxes and crime out there in Hollywood and all that. So, hypocrite woman that just doesn't mind lying. So she left not for Trump, as she said, but because of the bad policies in California, high taxes, and
That was just there to safeguard her career, David.
yeah, I know. Okay, high taxes and crime. But did you and I both know that she's been producing a lot of movies down in South America and other places, so she has other outsets since she's an Hispanic actress and everything, and so she's got some talent that she's produced. So she doesn't really need Hollywood as much as the others, but they all love Hollywood.
Yeah. Another one. Matt Gaetz, Attorney General. This is a big one because of all the damage that the DOJ has done going after Christians, going after believers here. If you protest anything, the DOJ has been weaponized to such a degree. Jacob's talked about it here quite enough. But the Matt Gaetz being the nominee for the Attorney General, that is huge. In fact, you could tell that the Democrats don't like him. The Republicans don't like him, at least the rhino ones, what they call the liberal Republicans. So your thoughts on Matt Gaetz?
All right. Yeah, well, Matt Gaetz had been attacked by the deep state with some disinformation. They talked about some sex trades. He was caught up in the sex trade, which all those guys were caught up in. And so they put that out there so everybody that doesn't like him, and the reason the Republicans don't like him is because he stood against McCarthy one-on-one. And McCarthy got put out because he had no backbone. And, Mike Johnson, you better listen because, you better have a backbone to get Trump's agenda done. But Gaetz, I think, is good. He's been mistreated by the deep state. I think he's got some scores to settle. And I think there's a lot of people with scorecards that are very, very full of bad things. And so that's why you don't want a guy that was screwed over to be able to have the power to expose things.
Were you surprised, David, that he was the nominee?
It caught me by surprise, but I watched him a lot on the Justice Committee and everything. This guy was brutal. He handled people like they were nothing, and he's not afraid, and he will take them on. But you can tell when you got Bolton is against him, so that's the deep state. You got the Republicans don't like
McCarthy,
him, and you got the Democrats that don't like him.
Good company.
Trifecta of being a great pick.
Jay, I wanted to ask you about Getz because you might like this. He is open to the investigation of the Jeffrey Epstein situation because we don't know the truth. And a lot of states were collaborating on this. He actually calls it a foreign intervention sponsored by the government. So there were foreign agents who were involved. There were the government, our government, who was obviously sponsoring it. And he's going after it because of the children who were so maligned, so affected, and yet nobody has been prosecuted for this. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a direct correlation. I mean, this is my opinion. There's a direct correlation to the stars and people moving outside of the country that are probably tied to the Epstein client list.
Yeah.
Did he?
It's interesting, isn't it? All of a sudden, there's some movement there. And if this guy becomes head of the DOJ, watch out, right? Watch out.
I hope he cleans house. Personally, I would start by firing everyone there and hiring new people.
Yeah, he's got to get rid of the State Department, the Justice Department has to be cleaned out. All the career operatives, all the career politicians that are in there that are dim, got to go. Bring in some good people.
No, absolutely. And you can see why they hate him. He is very open and he's tough, David, and he's smart. I mean, like him or not, you got to admit that he's really tough and he's really smart and he knows the law. And I could see why they picked him. How about Tulsi Gabbard, David, for Director of National Intelligence? Talk about a pick.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever seen some of the videos, she knows how to shoot machine guns, Mark 14s, great with pistols from all the things I've seen. I seen her working right alongside men, picking up those giant boulders and putting them over, running the obstacle courses, doing all that. And on top of, she's part Samoan. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, that's right. From Hawaii.
Samoan. And all the Samoans I ever met were pretty strong. And she's right in there. So not only is she physically tough, but the military school she went to, she graduated top of the class, the first woman ever to. So she's got some brains. And now they put her into intelligence. And people are shaking in their boots.
Remember they went after her? They went after, remember they went after her, the FBI, CIA, and they went after her and they were, investigating her. And then even Tom Bolton said, we need to investigate even more. And so
she's on a terrorist watch list.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Deep state saying that she was a Russian operative. Now, this woman has been promoted, has 20 years in, has promoted to a lieutenant colonel, So, man, time you're getting up to a colonel, you have intelligence briefings, you have secret briefings, and you've already been investigated by the FBI and all this stuff. And so, payback's going, payback is
a tough one. Yeah. That's a tough one, isn't it? Because she's got some scores to settle. Can we thank her, David, for single-handedly destroying Kamala Harris' presidency nomination? We even got started in those debates.
I have never seen a debate that was so well handled back in the 2020. She didn't even make it to the first state. She was so badly destroyed by Tulsi, and I mean, humiliated her. And so
you could see it on her face. You could see it on her face while it was happening.
She knew she was done. I think 2 days later, she dropped out of her campaign for president. She should have kept going. Now she's really humiliated.
Yeah. David, you might like this. She's tough on Islam. She says she's tough on Erdogan. She's tough on the enemies of the states.
Number one dictator in the world we're against.
Yeah. She's tough on China. So she's tough on China there. So dangerous dictator, she says. She doesn't put up with them. Islam, which has plenty of them. Turkey, obviously Iran. So there's so much to say about that. How about Pete Hegseth, which is an interesting pick for Secretary of Defense. We're going to come back to him at the end because there's some interesting things about Israel. But as a Secretary of Defense, couldn't get any worse than what we had.
Yeah, the thing is Pete, everybody just kind of says, oh, he's a Fox News host. Well, that's one job he has. It actually pays pretty good. But he's a combat veteran, twice Bronze Star, infantryman badge, so he's been in combat. He's tough. You see him all the time running marathons, raising things for the vets. He knows what it is to be a soldier. He knows what it is to be in war. And he's not stupid. He went
he's very
to
smart.
Princeton, got his undergraduate degree, then went to Harvard and got his graduate degree. And then he did one of the best things I've ever seen. He took both of them and burned them, his diplomas, on Fox News. Doesn't think much of them.
Not anymore. Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's in that way he's really good, and I think he's going to shake up. All these generals are not going to like calling him sir, and all these DEIs, they are a target. They've all got to go.
Yeah,
they can't be there because they're weakening the military, and they're not getting people to young men to come in and serve, and young women too. Because, to serve because, who wants that? Look, we want strong warriors. He's a warrior.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody say he has a Jerusalem cross. Have you guys ever seen that?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a cross, and then it's got 4 smaller crosses. And people go, oh, look at that. He's a Nazi. It's a Nazi. Look, it's a Jerusalem cross. It was favorable in the Crusades, like the Crusaders wore.
Yeah. How about this one?
When we get to it, he has great favorability about the survival of Jerusalem.
Yeah, we'll come back to him at the end. Robert Kennedy for Secretary of Health and Human Services. This is pretty amazing. A Kennedy serving in a Republican cabinet. But your thoughts on Secretary of Health and Human Services?
Man, I think this is great. He's one of the things he's going to do is he wants to do reviews of vaccine. He doesn't want to take away vaccines, but he wants to review the safety protocols and actually look at the data of what the vaccines are doing and if they've been covering up deaths, because you're not supposed to have more than 5 to 10 deaths with the vaccine before it has to go back to review. And so a lot of these vaccines don't even have that. A lot of them, from what he was saying, have never been reviewed. And so that's really good. Plus, we have to start looking at, is 75 vaccines good for your kid?
You're at such an early age, forget it.
Yeah. And like, America used to not take pills every day till after we had the introduction of the birth control pill, which was an everyday pill. And after that, the pharmacy industry said, man, we need to sell pills every day. And so that started, and now we have people on pills all the time. And I remember once when I was starting my weight loss journey, I asked I'd been on metformin. I wasn't diabetic, but I was pre-diabetic, is what they said. But, I was right at that 6.8. I wasn't in the 7 where you start going into diabetes. I never got in there. And so I asked my doctor, I said, if I lose all this weight, can I get off of these drugs? And he goes, oh, no, I think metformin is good for your kidneys. This is good for that. And, and so.
Good for your kidneys, huh?
Good for my
Pharmaceuticals are good for your kidneys. That's why there's so many dialysis places.
I'm checking everything out, and stuff. But I did get off. I talked to some other doctors, and with my A1C is at 5.1 now. So I don't think I'm diabetic.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you this too. Jed, we'll go to you. Vaccine stocks plunged as soon as the announcement came in. So they know the writing's on the wall from Moderna, Novavax, BioNTech, all drop at least 12%, some 30, some 40s. He's open to trials for what they did over the last 4 years. And so your thoughts on that, Jay?
I mean,
Jay?
we should definitely hold the vaccine manufacturers to the fire. Absolutely. Hearings, trials, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take it one step further. The media, NBC, CBS, every single one of them that ran with the propaganda of you're going to, shorten the time that we're going to have to be basically held in our own homes as prisoners if you get the shot, they need to be held accountable. The people who disallow any dissenting view on vaccines need to be brought and also tried for participating in one of the worst propaganda campaigns I have ever seen in my lifetime.
A fraud.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And this people may not like it. They're going nuts right now. The left, Marxist, transgender, Islamist, Marxist group are going absolutely nuts with all these nominations. And I'm looking forward to the circus leaving, because what Biden and Harris had in their cabinet, from men thinking that they're women and dogs and you name it, they had it. I'll leave that for another time. But David, I'll go back to you. Of all the policies that Trump is talking about, which was the one that perks your interest the most? I'll give you some of them here, and then you can tell me. The no on the WHO pandemic treaty, no on NATO, they need to pay, he says. No on censorship, First Amendment rights continue. No on transgender surgeries for children and holding the manufacture of those drugs, as well as teachers that influence that decision.
Doctors.
And the doctors as well, but pharmaceuticals, doctors, teachers, right? And of course, there's many other ones, the Department of Education and all those things. But of the ones that I mentioned, which just perks your interest the most?
For me, it's the one about the children and the trans. Look, they're sterilizing children. They're mutilating their bodies when they're just reaching puberty.
Yeah.
And they're destroying their lives and making them into people that will need medicine and other surgeries for the rest of their life. They'll be in pain. And you're seeing people that are trying to come out of the trans movement and telling us all these problems, all these medical problems they're having with their parts that have been altered. And it's a horrific story. All the people, the hospital should be, because of all the bad stuff, and they know it's wrong. I would say the hospitals that perform these, they need to pay and take care of these patients for the rest of their life without charge. The psychologists that all now are grooming and affirming the children when they come in as kids and they're tomboys, I think I'm a boy, they need to be held responsible, because that is the only answer they have for them, is to affirm their feelings. Anybody that runs on feelings, no, feelings change. And so that they need to be held responsible. And doctors that perform this and have made money off of this, every penny should be taken away. And so I hate what they're doing to children. So for me, that's the biggest one. And I have to tell you, Trump's video on this was outstanding. It was declarative. It was clear. And it's a policy that has to be pursued. And on top of that, and also, he wants to protect women in sports. No more men in sports. that say they're female and no more in the locker room stuff.
Yeah.
Let's protect the women.
Yeah, protect the most vulnerable for sure. And that's what's good. What about you, Jay? What do you think some of the ones that stand out to you, what he's planning on doing?
I mean, it's been a whirlwind. It's such a breath of fresh air after the 4 years of filth. I mean, I think the Matt Gaetz one is a big one because there is a lot of lawfare that has been focused on the right.
Yeah.
Towards the right, especially Trump, but even more so as far as rules against just, a small channel like ours.
Yeah.
I really want to see I want to see, I don't want to see politics as usual. I don't want to see, let's be friendly, let's hold arms and play kumbaya. What I want to see is action to the point where these people get to feel the same. I want justice. So Matt Gaetz is essential to that.
Yeah. And you're right. It's not about revenge. Because people say, oh, you're going to take revenge. No, it's justice. We just want justice. And of course,
you've broken a law
for God's people.
Got to do it. And then also, I'm waiting for FBI director, see who's going to get that. Because that place needs to be gutted from all the politicians and
I want Doge to actually destroy the FBI.
Look, there's still good FBI agents in there. There's still good people and good men that want to catch bank robbers and fraud and all that and do their job.
Send them.
We have whistleblowers.
Yeah.
Have whistleblowers. Gaetz ought to get them whistleblowers and promote them.
Yeah, they're the ones.
And promote them and say, clean house.
Yeah. I want to go to Davey real quick. Davey, of all the ones as an Australian, and you guys have gone through quite a bit of censorship and all kinds of transgender stuff that even the Prime Minister promotes. But seeing it from an Australian perspective and looking into the U.S. and being here in the U.S., which was the policies that you think, man, I can't believe it's coming from a politician?
Wow. It's really hard to narrow it down to one. But look, I agree with David. Trump's speech the other day, he made about, free speech and everything like that, holding people to account, because that's what's really needed with so many of the things. We've just had and I hope I'm not jumping ahead here, but they've just tried to push through. And they did this on election day while everybody is distracted with the US election. They were trying to push through the misinformation, disinformation bill down home. I do want to thank everybody who wrote, who contacted senators and voiced their objection to it, because it was overturned by one vote. So I do really want to thank everybody who appealed to Caesar. But the battle's not over. They'll look for another time. Be on your alert, and this goes for everyone with different things too. Thanksgiving and Christmas. I always remember what Obama did at Christmas time and when he was in power the first time. He uses Christmas when everyone's distracted to push through bills that would otherwise get shot down. So be on the alert. Don't give up. Keep writing your senators, because they're not going to give up on this. They're going to push it through. At the moment, it's great because of Trump getting in. We might be able to say goodbye to Kevin Rudd, or Rudd the Dud, as everybody calls him back home, the Australian ambassador to the US, because he really maligned and said, he's trying to clean up his Twitter account now and pretend things didn't happen, sweep it all under the rug. But I think his days are very numbered. Hopefully, others will follow through. Hopefully we'll lose Penny Wong. Hopefully she'll become swept to the dustbin of history. And hopefully Anthony Albanese will go. But the thing is, down home too, our opposing party was going to sign on to this bill too. So keep writing Dutton. Don't just think it's Anthony Albanese pushing this bill. It's Dutton too. Appealing to Caesar is a biblical thing. I know there's people who think, oh, no, you don't need to do it. Prayer is definitely your first step. You need to pray. Pray that the Lord removes these evil people. Pray that the Lord removes Anthony Albanese. Pray that the Lord removes Penny Wong. and I'm pray that the Lord will move Kevin Rudd. I think that may happen any day now. So
Praise God.
also petition these people. Let them know the fight's not over yet, and the heavy artillery is prayer, and we've seen prayer come through from us so much in recent weeks. So keep up the battle, keep on your knees, keep in prayer, and keep petitioning these evil politicians.
Thanks, David.
The only thing politicians fear is losing their job.
Yeah, money
and votes.
Yeah. So we hit the hour mark. Within the hour mark. So we want to welcome those who are watching and those who will watch later. Send in your questions. David Lister's here. Jay's here. Davey's here. We'll take the questions on. I think there's a few of them from last time, but I think they're personally for Jacob, so we'll leave them there. But send your questions in through Rumble. Send your questions in through Rumble, and we appreciate you guys who hit the hour mark. So let's go through the last few. We'll try to go as quickly as we can, but not forgetting some of these important ones. It's like 1938. David Lister, we'll start with you. It's like 1938 in Amsterdam. Jews are in pogroms. They're being persecuted. And on the anniversary of Kristallnacht in November, we were there in England. And when we started getting the news early on, I think Andy was sending me stuff and we were figuring out what in the world is happening in Amsterdam. But it wasn't just Amsterdam. It literally went into Paris. It went into Sweden. Obviously, you see some attacks there on Jewish people. You see Irish schools maligning Judaism, calling it a violent religion, not talking about Islam that way, which is another story. And so we'll start there with the anti-Semitism. We'll move into a little bit with England in the persecution there of even Christians who are speaking out. So, David, we'll start with you. Have you ever seen this like this? It was like 1938 again.
I've never seen it in my lifetime like this. I mean, we've always known Islam hates Jews, but they've always been corralled or held back by the lack of numbers, and they don't have the power. But within Islam, when you do get the power, then you start rising up. And because of the vast amount of Islamic migration to Europe, okay, starting with France. I mean, they brought a lot of Muslims from Morocco right after the war to rebuild France, and then they allowed them to bring their families. So it's been rising for a long time there. But now you've had unchecked migration, and these are military-age men that are ready to fight, and they believe that this is their time. I've said that before, that Islam is believing that this is their time. They're very rich due to oil.
Yep.
They're very rich in gold and finance and things like this, and they have a power. And they really, but they have a problem. They want Palestine to actually be a state. And they believe this will solve the problem of Israel, which it won't. It'll only make things worse. But then they'll be able to go to war against Israel.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We've got to worry about that. So, but they're rising all over Europe. They're burning churches. They're burning lots of churches in France. They're burning,
France. Yeah.
They're going out in the streets and holding prayer, claiming the street as theirs. Wherever they step and pray, they're saying, this is ours, this is ours. And when you see England is doing something stupid, when a person stands there and says, look, England belongs to English people, English citizens, and you guys are invading, then now you're a criminal for saying the truth. Yeah. And so England will bring their own demise upon them. You're seeing that they're pretty smart about politics. They vote in mass blocks. They create large families and bigger voting blocks, so they'll be able to exert political power. You're seeing this in London, England. You're seeing it all over. And we saw the riots that they're attacking Jews. Not only was it coordinated, we heard that the taxi drivers that were leaving were working with these Islamic groups to attack these Jews, and they were beating them, and some of them had to jump in the river to get away. And so Israel sent planes to Holland for any Jew that wants to leave. But at the end of the day, this is terrible. Anti-Semitism is wrong, but God is drawing more Jews back to Israel.
Yeah.
And it is working for that.
Yeah, Jay, I wanted to go to you real quick. Nazism coming back to Europe. And what you've seen is almost, in your thoughts on this, Zechariah 12 talks about the surrounding nations who will come against Israel. They have a hatred for Israel. That has been, God says, I'll give you over to a cup of reeling, a cup of drunkenness. Not only the surrounding nations will drink, and that will make them act erratically, and their hatred against Israel is just demonic. But that hatred has now gone into other nations because of immigration. Now that hatred that was once just on the surrounding nations of Israel now has gone to other nations, as God says, I will bring all the nations. All the nations will drink of this cup. Are you seeing? Do you see that? Do you see that going on now? That it's just an absolute. Whenever Islam has gone from the surrounding nations of Israel to other nations, the same hatred grows and it brews very quickly.
Yeah, the villainization of Israel is worldwide now. It's basically the bread and butter of most media outlets.
Yeah.
Specifically, I'd like to talk about France a little bit, though, because it's a very interesting topic, because we have to understand that France was the dividing line, the stop of the Muslim conquest. And right now we have a person in France that calls him, well, his name is God amongst us.
Yeah.
Jupiter, the God amongst us. Emmanuel Macron.
Yes.
And people, the media says that about him, but let's examine that. Is he like a Charles Martel, drawing a line between the Muslim conquest of France and being active in defending its culture, its values? No. He's completely opening the door and giving over France to the Muslim invaders. And this expectation is being repeated all over Europe, in universities and academia abroad. It's all the same message. Zionism is evil. But, without the context that the reason there is in Israel is because somebody in 1945 and previously was trying to exterminate them. It was a direct response to the fact that people were trying to kill all the Jews. People don't understand that today. They want to deny it begins with denying the Holocaust, and they've already sowed those seeds.
For many
Muslim
years.
worlds, it's very hard to talk to them about the Holocaust. They say it's just Jewish lies and propaganda.
Yeah. Unbelievable, man. You're seeing it. You're seeing it front and center news, and it's like nothing. It was just more Jews being attacked. David, you got some thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's just kind of like while we were in the UK, we saw what happened in Amsterdam as it's growing, it's spreading everywhere. And look, I can see it very quickly happening soon down home in Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne. It's kind of like where, this is going to spread. It'll be US too. We're not going to be exempt. It's not going to be just limited to Europe. But I think this is a time too where we as believers can actually reach out and offer that helping hand and care to those who are being persecuted, to the Jewish community. And we know it'll soon be us too. It's kind of like it's all, first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. They'll be coming after us next. But I look back and the parallels between what happened in World War II, and what's happening now, they're there, and we can't turn a blind eye to it. So if we see the opportunity for those who have a love for the Jewish people, this is probably the time where we can offer that helping hand.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a time to not to play the neutral game, as many have tried to play, or even moral equivalencies and trying to make Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and the terrorist organization just like Israel. And there's a lot of them who do that. A lot of them, even in the church, who have tried to do it. And that's been really the disappointing aspect of it within the body of Christ, who have just taken what you're saying, that neutral stand, David, that neutral, we're not going to get involved. We don't believe Israel has the rights to the land. We don't believe God has a purpose for them anymore. And of course, we've seen that here in the States. We've seen it in a lot of places. David Lister, back in England, there was this Day of Remembrance, and they were blocking the bridge now because there was a Hamas a protest on behalf of Hamas, on behalf of Palestinians. And it's like Soviet Britain in a sense. You can't talk about this stuff. You can't bring it up. You will be you'll be labeled. You could be in prison under the new Starmer government. And so journalists are being interrogated. There's a young man who's 16 who was sentenced for on the 3rd of December for the Southport riots because he protested. His sister was groomed, was raped, and he, of course, is now going to be serving time in prison. So because of protests, her brother's going to prison from the girl that was raped and groomed. I think she died, too, as well. So you can't talk about this stuff in England. That is gone, especially when it comes to Islam. Your thoughts on that?
Well, unfortunately, England has been going off for a long time theologically. It's been going off morally. And so now, as they say, the chickens have come home to roost. Yes. And they've imported their problems, and they're going to reap the whirlwind. Because, look, Islam fought, you talked about World War II, Islam in Israel during World War II had a brigade of Muslims that were killing Jews. They were neck and neck, side by side with the Nazis. You couldn't distinguish one between the other than the uniform they wore. And so they feel it's their time. They're a culture of death, just like the Nazis were a culture of death. And they love death, and they seek it out because they realize in death is the only way to be assured of getting 72 virgins and receiving eternal life in paradise with Allah.
That's right.
So this is the only way. Otherwise, in Islam, you have to have your heart weighed on a scale and by an angel. And if your good deeds outweigh your bad deeds, then you get to enter it. And if anyone really thinks about that I'm good enough to get into heaven, and they know their heart, most people are fearful of having to face that type of judgment, a judgment for works. For Christians, we know the scale is 100% perfect for 100% of the time. So measure yourself against that and realize why Jesus Christ is very important for you. But even Islam, they groom their children to die as martyrs. And they celebrate death with candies as like it's a marriage. So the Nazis are nothing new. Yeah. Islam has been practicing this since 630 BC, AD. Sorry, and also as in Germany, there was a saying by Churchill: "A Hun is a Hun is a Hun." They keep going back to their original roots. Because God is no longer checking them and holding them back. The Reformation was there in Germany, but now there's nothing there to hold them back. They've rejected the God of creation, the God of grace, the God of love for a God of death.
You mentioned, David, back in World War II, of course, Islam was involved. I mean, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Muhammad Amin Husseini, incited riots against Jews in Israel.
In Israel,
made the deals with Hitler. Yeah, to fight, to have Muslims fight on the behalf of the Nazis. So it's not a new thing necessarily, but now you see it, it's compounding, not just in the Middle East, because that's where it used to be. The hatred was mainly there. Now it's moved back into Europe after being there in the 40s. That was moved back into Europe because of that. And I did want to finish today with the Arab League, David, the Arab League. This is the OIC Arab League. They met this week, and there were some UN Security Council meetings. It was all about the two-state solution. That's the resolution that they have. We heard from Erdogan. We heard that he wants the two-state solutions. He broke all ties from Israel. He's pressuring. He wants to pressure countries who are selling weapons to Israel because of the war that's going on with Hamas and Hezbollah. Of course, it'll mention that, Israel's trying to get rid of the terrorist organizations that are in Israel. But Saudi Arabia Prince bin Salman was there. Jordan King Hussein was there. President al-Sisi, General al-Sisi from Egypt. All of it with the same rhetoric, David Lister. We'll start there. We need a two-state solution to have peace. We'll give you peace. We'll make a peace deal. In exchange, you'll give us the two-state solution. It's the only way we're going to have peace. We'll start there. What are your thoughts, David?
Well, my thoughts are, I believe what the Quran teaches them to do. Make a deal with your enemy for no more than 10 years, but make sure before 10 years is up, break the deal. So I know in advance, Islam's promises are not good. So they will break the peace because they will gain power by empowering the Palestinians, which anybody that's ever been to Israel knows a lot of Palestinians and in and around Nazareth, in the narrow part of Israel up there, they're very powerful. They could cut Israel in half and make them very weak. So strategically, it's a bad move for Israel to do this. The land that they want to give them is called Judea and Samaria. That is Israel's ancient land.
Yeah, those are the land
our Lord,
the mountains of Israel.
Judea.
Israel, yeah, Judea.
So it's where the temple, where the tabernacle, Shiloh's there. Right next to an Arab city called Ai. And it's right near, you've been there, I think, the Mount of Blessing, the Mount of Curse is right there.
Yeah, Shechem.
That's Israel's land.
Yeah, Shechem.
Israel's land, ancient land. And even the Quran, I know, says this, that the Quran says that land was given to the people of the book, to Moses' people. So they know it. But the ancient fight of two brothers, Esau and Jacob,
still feeling it.
Esau wants his birthright back.
Yeah.
And they've been fighting ever since, and he wants his birthright back, but they're not going to get it. They may get some temporary victories, but if they divide Jerusalem, which is what they want to do, they will be cursed. All who divide Jerusalem are going to be cursed.
Yeah, I mean, it's already a divided city. It's already a divided city with the east,
but not given away.
It's
Israel has control.
That's part of the Palestinian state, and that's for sure. But isn't it interesting, David, that we're talking about this in the midst of a war? They said this is the only way to get out of a war is to have a peace plan, is to have a two-state solution that will guarantee certain things to Israel and certain things to the Palestinians. In this case would be Gaza. Part of it maybe would be to the Muslims who live in what they call the West Bank. But I wanted to ask you about Netanyahu and the Knesset.
One thing, the U.S.
I will come back to that in a moment. Do you agree that they will have some kind of negotiation on this in exchange for certain things guaranteed?
Yeah, they want to have, like I said, they will negotiate. They're trying to get this done because they want. The Palestinian question is a question that's been hanging over ever since the King of Jordan expelled them across the Jordan River into Israel.
Yeah.
And so they tried to solve it by taking Palestinians into Egypt and into Kuwait. Kuwait took 300,000 of them in. And then when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, who had been generous to them, gave them jobs, gave them education, gave them housing, and then they turned on them. So Kuwait took all 300,000 and got them out of their country like in a month or month and a half. It didn't take long.
Black
So
September.
Trump he can work like that and get rid of our problems. But
Let me ask you this.
But
Would Israel be willing, if Trump gets involved and agrees and guarantees it, if he comes to strengthen whatever deal they're going to make?
Well, I would hate to see Trump play that card. The Trump card has gotten played in the Middle East. It's thrown sort of like a Trump card down. There's a game called Trumper, isn't there? Something like that.
You have your Trump card, the
everybody.
ultimate card. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's now Israel's protector. He's a great protector. Marco Rubio protects. Our new department head, Pete, forget his last name. but anyway,
Secretary of Defense.
loves Israel.
Yeah.
So Israel has got a lot of allies. I would tell them don't make a deal because Islam does not keep its deals. They break them in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I think the bottom line is everybody's pushing for a ceasefire. They see this war has gone past a year. Obviously, there's many Jews have been killed, many Arabs have been killed, many Muslims have been killed. They want a long-lasting peace. That's his bottom line from the Arab Summit League. They want some form of agreement.
Yes.
Being hammered out yet. They want Israel to guarantee certain things, which is the two-state solution.
Yeah.
Israel wants certain things guaranteed, which is peace, right? And this is where I believe Trump administration comes in. It's very interesting. I'm just looking at it from an interesting perspective. You mentioned some of these key cabinet members who are very, very pro-Israel. And then the rights of the Jews being there. And I'm going to give you a series of questions, David. Is that all right? Is that all right?
Yeah, number one.
Okay. Will Trump support the deportation of terrorists from Israel, guaranteeing them that the only people that are left are Israel-loving people, just similar to what's going on here in the States?
If he sends them to other Muslim states, they're going to let them go. So they'll be right back in the fight. The only way I would do it is if they brought them to America and put them in Cuba. Keep them there.
I heard Cuba's nice in the summer. Declare Israel sovereignty over the West Bank, which is Judea and Samaria, and parts of Lebanon, as well as the Golan Heights. Would Trump agree to that, or would he be willing to give that to Israel as a guaranteed?
If he did, I don't know that. Look, they want to have a state for Palestinians.
Right.
My solution for Palestinians is there's 22 Arab nations. Scatter them to the nations, the 22 Islamic nations.
Right. Which is
now you have a home.
Yeah, they never absorbed them, right? Like not like the Jews who absorbed all the Jews who came from. David, this is more of a specific one now. Okay. Will he be the answer to the Jewish prayer of today that the increased expectation is that the religious Jews and increasingly secular Jews, that since Trump is a builder and he makes deals just like Cyrus and Herod, will he give them the okay to build the temple?
It is a big concern of mine that the talk from our future director of defense.
Oh, David, hold on. Yeah, you're right. Let me play that video since people could watch it and you can comment right after that. I'm sorry. I should have said it earlier. Yeah. Peter Hegseth, which, by the way, we think he's a great guy. But listen to what he's saying.
In Jerusalem. And today, Jennifer and I had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
Wow.
You notice nobody clapped.
I don't know how it would happen. You don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. That's all I know.
Well,
And a step in that process, a step in every process, is the recognition that facts and activities on the ground truly matter. And that's why going and visiting Judea and Samaria, understanding that sovereignty, the very sovereignty of Israeli soil, Israeli cities, locations, is a critical next step to showing the world that this is the land for Jews and the land of Israel.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and then I'll play Vivek in a moment. Vivek Ramaswamy, who's also part of Trump's cabinet. But your thoughts on this, David? This is quite shocking, isn't it? Quite amazing.
it's people are talking about the temple. Jews want the temple. They go through every Passover and sling chickens over their heads and do some good works, hoping that their sins are forgiven. So I don't know that they know if they really think that's good, because they are pushing for it. But my concern is that Trump may well, if he wants peace and he wants to have a great peace, is that he stumbles and puts America as the guarantee. And if he guarantees a peace, we could get dragged into a world war in minutes, and we could also, because what's coming is Antichrist temple.
Yeah, this is
The blind don't know this. And this is Antichrist temple that they could, could he put something up? Look, all you have to do is throw up a tent. It's a temporary build and then build around it. They could divide the place in half, because as Jacob has taught many times, the Holy of Holies, most believe, is that the cupola of the spirits, which is behind the dome of the rock. And if a wall was put up between them, then they could both have their thing going on.
Yeah, what a lot of people believe, that, David, is because of Trump coming in, it's like a renaissance of it for Israel.
Yes.
They have technology, they have weaponry, but they don't have safety. They have too much terrorism. And since Trump has been promising, we're going to get rid of the evil in our country, and would he do them for Israel? They want him to do that. And that's really the final point that I think it's being addressed here, is for the first time, there's a president or an administration that is willing to say, in order to have peace, it has to be through this Temple Mount. Through this Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is the key. Now, most people thought of peace, Golan Heights, Judea and Samaria. Those are true things in terms of what's to happen in sovereignty that Israel has is important. I believe those are Jewish lands. But now you're talking about the Temple Mount. It's a real
Mount Zion.
Which increasingly
Jews will worship in Zion.
Yeah, which increasingly have been Jews going up there recently. They're not supposed to, according to the deal that they made with the Waqf and the Jordanians. They're supposed to go up there being escorted by police, but now they're going up there still escorted by police, but they pray. And now you had a Cohenite, a priest, an actual priest of Aaron's sons that they made the distinction by DNA that these are descendants of Aaron, going up there and pray. An actual high priest going up there and praying, and did the Aaronic benediction and the Aaronic blessing there. So it is quite fascinating and moving very quickly. Then now you have an administration who's saying, in order to have peace, we need to deal with the Temple Mount, not just with Israel, but with the Temple Mount. And what's interesting, you can comment on this, David, because people are saying, well, it's going to cause a major war, right? Now, when Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, people said the same thing. It's going to cause a major war. And it didn't happen. Actually, it was 4 years of quite peaceful moments during that time when he was president. Now they're saying if he moves it again, if he starts going toward the temple, we're going to have wars and this and that. It may be the sign of peace, isn't it? It may be the sign of peace temporarily until, as you mentioned, Antichrist comes. And we don't know how far that is, how far along we are in that timeline. But David, it's just surreal. Are we really seeing this? Are we really talking about this when it comes to prophecy?
Well, Jesus said to be aware of the signs of his coming. And we know that there is the one that's coming, that's his temple. And whoever builds it, they're building it for him, because there is no, the next temple built by God and ordered by God and his word is, of course, Ezekiel's temple, but this one is Antichrist's temple. So they will be building it blindly for him, and he will come. And one of the things that he will bring is war. We know that with the first seal. And also, we know how that we live in perilous times.
Seems to be peace.
Peace, and then sudden destruction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, well, David, was it you want to make a comment on that, or was it Jim?
No, I had a quick
Well,
comment.
it was you. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, Solomon was one of the greatest builders of all time, acknowledged. The first temple was the most beautiful.
Yep.
And then Herod came.
He's a builder.
Herod wanted to be better than Solomon and built the second temple. Unfortunately, I see in Donald Trump a person whose hubris could be used to say, well, I'm going to make a big, beautiful temple. It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be greater than anything else that's been there before. That's the problem.
That's the problem. What's interesting, Jay, is that these are what the Jews are saying. Trump Tower. How about a Trump temple? Built and sponsored, perhaps not by him built necessarily, but sponsored by his guarantees of peace. And it's not to say that he's the Antichrist of any sort of thing like that, but you're seeing
not saying that.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying that either. But I'm saying you're seeing the legwork and the pavement being set up that ultimately will be used for that. And I think we're far down the road now into biblical prophecy and the end of the age, because we're talking about this stuff. It's not, this stuff has been around for a while, but nobody ever really talked like this. I'm going to play Vivek's video and just make a real quick comment on it, because I thought it was fascinating.
Remember, this guy's a Hindu.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Let me see if I can pull it up. There it is. And yeah, so this is Vivek regarding the sovereignty of Israel, which I don't think I disagree with them on it, but let's look.
These are decisions, or now is the moment for Israel to return to its founding premise. The Jewish state has an absolute right to exist, a divine gift, gifted to a divine nation, charged with a divine purpose. Israel has an absolute and unequivocal right and responsibility to defend itself to the fullest, applying the only language that its adversaries understand, the language of force. So what would David Ben-Gurion say today? He would say, don't depend on anybody else's fleeting sympathies or permission to do it. If Israel and Mossad want to pull off Munich 2.0 and take out every last leader of Hamas, wherever they may be hiding, from Doha to Dresden, host a red wedding at the Four Seasons in Qatar, the next time Haniyeh and Mashal show up, they should go ahead and do it. If Israel wants to, at long last, abandon the myth of a two-state solution, Israel should go ahead and abandon a two-state solution. The rest of the Arab world can absorb Palestinians just as the Jews absorbed their people out of 22 countries they were kicked out of since 1948. The Islamic world cannot continue to condone the slaughtering of Jews while continuing to disown the Palestinians. That is the hard truth, that neither member of either political party is willing to speak out loud to the Arab world. I will.
Very interesting. So, David, we agree with them on that. And there is that divided, I guess, within the Trump administration, those who believe Israel's sovereign over the whole nation and those who believe that there should be a two-state solution. But your thoughts on this?
Well, I didn't find anything wrong in what he said and everything, but being that he's not a Christian, he doesn't understand the prophecy part. And look, I would agree that if they kept all the land, didn't divide it, and the Palestinians were absorbed into everything, it might postpone things for a while. But see, Islam is not going to give up the Temple Mount. They're not going to give it up. They believe Muhammad was there. They believe Abraham and his son Ishmael came there and was sacrificed. So even though the Quran in Surah 37 says Ishmael was left in Medina, so after that, there's no mention of him, so I don't know how he got to Jerusalem. It doesn't speak to that. So their own problems there, and they'll never give that up. They're not going to give the Temple Mount up. They may give up part of it for a Palestinian state, but a Palestinian state will always be a firewood ready to light.
Yeah, and I think
It's very interesting.
Comes with this peace agreement, and then ultimately the Temple Mount will be something that they would divide, because even Revelation 11 talks about a temple with no courtyard, because that's been given over to the Gentiles. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say it's very interesting, the dynamic, because the Islam can take a beautiful church with images of the Lord and turn it into a mosque. But when it comes to any of their buildings, thou shalt not touch lest we shed blood. Very interesting dynamic they have.
Yeah.
We're not. Yeah.
India handles their mosque quite well nowadays.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think the support that's going to come as this temple will be touted, a temple for all nations. You know, they've had meetings like that already, the Temple Institute, of 70 nations coming in, and the wealth of the nations, they say, is going to come and help build this temple. It'll be a worshipful temple to God. It will be inclusive of all the faith, and a place to worship God. I think that's the angle that a lot of people are going to be seduced by, that this is going to be such a good thing for humanity, such a good thing for the world, that eventually I think even well-meaning people will have to cave in, because there'll be such a uproar, you know, for desire for peace, a desire for getting these things completed. And so I think all these things are working together. David, would you think that everything is converging into that one piece of real estate on the Temple Mount, that not only the interfaith movement, not only the peace, the stopping of the war, the making of the deal, the worship of God, that is all coming to that one piece of real estate.
And deceived Christians will be pushing this. I could see them pushing that this is a good thing, because they don't have because of the blindness to prophecy in this day, in this age, they don't understand the spiritual consequences of how they're being led by their ignorance.
100%. 100%.
Something insane, that they're quickening the destruction of bringing the abomination that makes desolate.
You know, you talk about that, David. We're just shutting down, so we're gonna just switch over to backstage and get the question. Yeah, and so thank you guys for sending the questions. We appreciate it, and if you have the questions, send them in through Rumble. What's interesting is you mentioned these Christians. Some of them very myopic, very misled, deceived. This is not good. You guys got
don't spread the gospel to Jews.
Yeah, well, you have things like ministries like John Hagee's ministry, who's always giving to Jews who want to build
covenant theology.
Yeah, there's enough problems with John Hagee, but the idea, of course, is the fact that he supports this unbelieving Jews, and supporting these other Christians who think the temple's going to be a fantastic thing, and it should be good. And boy, do we miss a lot on what the Bible says. Ultimately, the end of history, the end of the age, will deal with that piece of real estate and what's going to happen there. It is not good. It is the sign that Jesus gave, the abomination of desolation coming to Jerusalem and Judea, and ultimately will bring the nations into Israel and Judea, not to worship God, but to try to destroy the Jewish people.
His people.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, David. Jay, Davey, thank you so much. We're going to backstage. We have some questions. I think they're already coming in. So we appreciate you guys watching. Lots of stuff, very powder keg-like stuff going on in the world. No pun intended. But it seems like we're it's like we're holding on to something and it's ready to go off. And I don't know, in a good way or a bad way, it's going to be, obviously it's in a bad way at this point, but we're seeing things changing in the world. And although we glorify the Lord and we're very happy that some Christians are being protected, especially in our country, and some bills are being overturned, like in Australia, we do believe that we're in perilous times. And so continue prayer, sober in spirit, continue to make disciples, and continue to cry out to God. For ultimately, it's about his return. It's about Jesus coming back. So God bless you guys. We'll see you on Backstage. All right, welcome back to Backstage, the part of the episode in which our tech overlords continue to malign us, and they don't want us to talk about these things. And of course, Morial TV has been put on a 1-week punishment for mentioning someone's name last week. So here we are. And but we are on other platforms, so like Rumble, like X, like Telegram, like another channel on YouTube, which is Morial Chapel. And so we continue on. So we continue to press on. And so we have questions. David Lister, Davey, you ready for the questions? David, we'll start with you. My question is, what are your thoughts on the old map left behind by being deciphered by Dr. Finkel? It was around 1880, found in 1880 in Iraq, supposedly marks where Noah's Ark is. God bless you all. Well, thank you for the question. David, what do you think?
Well, from Grant Jeffries in the 80s to many other people, to even Dr. Randall Price, who was the first Gentile head of the Dead Sea Scrolls Commission. People have been looking for the Ark on Mount Arafat forever. They've had all sorts of things. Now we're using satellite technology and spying. And all that seems to happen is these expeditions go up there and nothing is ever found. They say that this was found, that was found, but there's nothing ever found. And I don't know that Noah's Ark is really important. We know that Jesus said that that Noah was a historical character, mentioned him. And so that's enough for me. And Dr. Price lost, I think, 3 toes due to frostbite going up there. They've all, look, anybody, if Noah's Ark was up there, there'd be a cable car up there and the Turks would be making money off of it. So I don't think it's there. I don't think the map is any more important to finding it than and look, you got satellite technology that can see through ground. And they went up there and they looked for those places where they said, oh, yeah, here's an ark here, here's an ark there. And it always ends up bust. So right. Dr. Price, who is a real archaeologist, couldn't find it. Well,
maybe
I
it's
don't know
not
about these other guys.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. There's one in Ohio that people can go see it, and it's quite nice. And the answer is this building. Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, I think it's a matter of, I think the reason why the Lord doesn't want it revealed is a matter of faith. Either you trust what the word says or you don't. If you had physical evidence of the ark, can you imagine the debate? People would be carbon dating it and saying, oh, no, it's 7 billion years old. It was built by a dinosaur. I mean, it would be endless.
Yeah. You think if it was there, they probably would have found it with the technology and the amount of stuff. I mean, send a drone over there. I just look to see if it's there. But anyway, it's quite complex in terms of political things. But I agree. I think if it was there, they would have found it. But do we really need it in a sense of salvation? I think we have enough evidence to know it's true. Now, it would be cool if it was there. It would really be cool. It would get like, yeah, man, this is exactly what happened. But oftentimes it's a lot of hype more than reality. David Lister,
Those books, man.
yeah, David Lister, is the church still making disciples? It's a question we ask. I've always tried to do that with my family, but what about our spiritual family?
Well, me and my daughter, spiritually, we've known each other a few years, and we have a great relationship, and they're my family. And you have to know your real family is your spiritual family, because we see in scripture that the dead are told to leave, follow Jesus, and let the dead bury the dead. So if our families do not get born again, then they will perish, unfortunately, and we will have a real family that will live forever. And so we have to look. I've always wanted to make disciples. I think about the disciples I've made that are now pastors that are making other disciples, and new churches Morial has planted, and all the people that have come out of bad faith into a solid faith, which is something that a lot of people tell us. Oh, I was lost and I had bad theology. I was in the word faith movement or this cult or that cult, and I came out. And so these are the people we will be spending eternity with. And what the church has to do in this last days is actually recognize that these are your family and treat them as such. You should be loving them and helping them. If you have means to help a poor brother or sister, you should be doing it. If you have the ability to buy them books and help them with their spiritual journey, invest the time, because the reward is eternity for them. And so, but look, I think we've got a respite with Mr. Trump, and we can go down this road a little bit further. But as you heard on today's episode, there may be an end coming sooner than we think. So pray for your family.
Yeah, let me ask you back this the original question: is the church still making disciples?
In some places, like there's some places, this place here, that place here, but the overall time that we're living in is a time of great apostasy. It's just in individual churches. Jacob did a teaching called the Rebellion of Sheba, and on it he talks about there's good people in bad churches, and then there's good churches in bad denominations. And that's the standard. You're going to find that you're going to go to a church and it's a bad church, and there's some good people in that church that love the Lord, and God hasn't called them out of it, that they're trying to still teach the truth there. So that it's up to the Lord to call them out, not us to tell them. But the making disciples is a lost art, and there are some, but they're few and far between. But God has his 7,000 around the world. You guys found some new brothers and sisters over there in Scotland and England, Marco. And
absolutely,
they are. When there's brothers and sisters in Philippines and in Thailand and stuff, and so the work continues. But we're scattered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, David. You want to make a quick comment on this?
Yeah, just because, I've been the product of what happens when you don't have discipleship. And look, the church has been failing in that, by and large, it's been failing in that for like 30, 40 years. But it's only getting worse because you've got the once saved, always saved. You've got the pre-trib. But basically all you need to do is just believe you're in the club. That's it. It doesn't matter how you live, how you walk. And it doesn't matter about forgiving one another, walking with one another, bearing one another's burdens. None of that, all of that's lost in most of the church today. So Yeah, but it has to start with us.
Yeah.
We're not going to see the large church in any means. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to apostatize more and more and become more compromised and more like the world. The only ones who are going to have real agape is going to be us. So it has to start with us. We have to be the ones who forgive one another, love one another, bear one another. When we're wronged, when we wrong someone, we go to someone, ask them, forgive me. Look, I didn't mean to do this against you. That kind of thing. We've been given the ministry of reconciliation. So we need to be active about that, and we need to be encouraging others, younger believers. This is the problem with a lot of evangelism. You give them the gospel, and that's it. They're on their own. That's it, because they're once saved, always saved. No, it means you're going to have to get involved with their lives. You've got to have follow-up. Otherwise, Jacob always says that evangelism without discipleship equals zero.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. This is for Jacob, but he's not here. David, how should we Christians be praying for Israel, as many so-called Christians are praying Trump will resurrect the Abraham Accords and bring peace? But we know when the man of sin, when man says peace and peace, what the Bible says, I know we should pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Not sure Christians are aware when they want the Abraham Accord as peace in Israel. So the question is basically, how should we as Christians be praying for Israel?
Well, you play what the Bible says to pray for. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now, we're praying for that the Lord would revive his people, that people will get born again, that they'll have their eyes open, which eventually they will, but it won't be it'll be a great day, but they will look upon him whom they have pierced and they will mourn. Okay, so there'll be great weeping and things like that. But in the meantime, great pain is going to come upon the whole world. But you've got to make disciples, do your best. And as far as praying for Jerusalem, look, I pray that God would bring Jews and put them in my path. I talked to a lady today and showed her how to witness to Jews because she has some connections. And so we've got to equip ourselves even more. See you, sister. Here, daughter. Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah. So anyway, pray that they'll have their eyes open. Ask God for opportunities to witness to Jews. Learn how to witness to Jews so that you can open up the Old Testament and show them through the understanding of the New Testament what this is, so they can relate and hear the gospel and understand it from the Old Testament. Jesus is all throughout the Old Testament. And you'd be surprised. Know how to present Isaiah 53 to them, and do what you can. But pray that more will come before the time of tribulation and great tribulation comes upon the world. So pray for people, individual people. Pray for them as a nation. Pray for the nation's safety, because as long as the final act of Antichrist doesn't come, we have time to work while there's light.
Very good. Thank you, David. And I think that's important to know how to pray for Israel, because their biggest need is salvation. Biggest need is the Messiah, Jesus. And of course, we do support their sovereignty in the land. We believe God's promises are for Israel to have that land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob promised to them. But they've been in the land before as an unbelieving nation. It never worked out for them. They were in rebellion and they were exiled. And God promised to bring them back. But their biggest need is, of course, at the end of the age, is salvation in Jesus, just like every Gentile.
America's bombs won't protect them. Trump won't ultimately be able to protect them. All our politics won't be able to protect them of what's coming.
Yeah, because it's not a political battle, and it's not an ideological battle or philosophical battle.
What's coming is a spiritual
battle. Yeah, they have to see it. How many true Christians are in the UK, David? I really think there's still quite a few true Christians in the US. Help God give us mercy. Help God give us mercy rather than punishment this time.
You know, I live in the Bible Belt in the South. I am surrounded by church. The vast majority of them are Reformed theology, don't really have a concern about Israel. A whole bunch of Church of Christ. If you saw Sandy last week talk about Church of Christ, you would understand. Surrounded by them. They believe, many of these guys that came out of the Stone Camel movement believe in sinless perfectionism and that only their baptism is when you'll receive the Holy Spirit. So they have another person between you and God. So everywhere I go, you see the curses on the land of Mormons, courthouses. You see Jehovah Witnesses. They're all over the South, everywhere. These are curses on our land. You're seeing Hindu temples being built everywhere. So there is a great apostasy. The church is not holding back all these evils. You know, I remember a time when I lived in Pittsburgh, the Mormons that I was witness to, they would run into my disciples on all four sides of Pittsburgh and say, I ran into a lady over there. She says the same thing you does. She was my disciple. So, look, we can fight this battle by knowing the Lord and evangelize. Do what you can and be diligent. Know what you believe, know why you believe it. And also teach people the basic principles, you know. But this is the Bible Belt here. In England, Jacob says there's been great apostasy there. It says the churches are all being turned into mosques. So who's winning the battle? I mean, there are a few. But that's what it's always been anyway. It's always been a remnant.
Yeah.
Listen to Jacob's teaching, not even a minion, and you'll understand.
All right.
This question, I think, would be thoroughly answered with that teaching, not even a minion.
Yeah, I think another teaching that he did is very good on that is the growing remnant. It's the shrinking church, but the growing remnant. I think that was very good. David, what is your opinion on the 1986 EDSA revolution? Is it legitimate biblical or legitimate revolution? I think that happened in the Philippines. We were talking about
Philippines. I think this was the one that a people's movement that got rid of Marcos' growing dictatorship, got rid of Marcos and Amelia and her 1,000 pairs of shoes. But it didn't live up to its goals. They had Aquino come in and, you know, they just have traded one leader for another leader for another leader. And it as far as the Philippines, it's still marked by a whole lot of Catholic Church everywhere. Extreme poverty. They have better education now, and in certain places they have a higher standard of living. But if you ever fly into the airport there in Manila, you will see giant areas of slums, living the one house attached to another with 10, and it's just terrible. And the poverty is just as third world as anything I've seen. So it's never lived up to its principle. And then the invasion of Western Christianity has mainly been milquetoast Christianity, minor with bad theology, not great theology. So even in halfway decent churches. So, but there are some that are decent, but they're few and far between. The People's Party didn't. The People's Revolution never lived up to its goal.
All right, very good. David, according to the book of Revelation, what do they mean about the Jews being not and of the synagogue of Satan? That would be Revelation 2. Are they the current apostate state Israel. So this is Revelation 2 and 3. The Jews who are not, and the synagogue of Satan, are they the current apostate Israel?
Any Jew that has rejected their own Messiah and is now thinking that they can do good works to receive God's grace are a synagogue of Satan. They're teaching against their own Messiah. They're teaching against the own word of God. They're teaching works and not grace. They're blind. Now they see partially and everything. So those are the people. The Jews overall are pretty much a secular nation. They also have a lot of atheists there. And so they give their babies to Moloch in abortions, and they do what just about every other nation is doing. But the amount of Jews that are starting to see has grown and has been growing, but even it has its limits nowadays. So the NAR has made sure that they've come in and affected the Messianic movement.
Yeah, the Tikkun movement, yeah.
Yeah, and, so look, the devil is running rapid in the world, trying to deceive people everywhere. Don't be deceived. You better know what you believe, and you better know why you believe it, and have your faith grounded, and to know good. The greatest is to know the Lord with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. And you better have reasons for your faith, because days are coming that are going to be rough.
Yeah, sir. The synagogue of Satan, I think it was Jesus was talking about it, were Jews who were persecuting other Jews on the basis of Jesus, persecution of believers done by the Jews. You see it in the book of Acts as well.
You're seeing that today.
Yeah, and so
the religious Jews are persecuting the
true church,
Messianic Jews, and they even go after non-believing Jews. They've done such a horrible job of being an example of what a good Jew is supposed to be that it turns off most Jews to religion at all.
Period. Yeah. So what it doesn't say, and I think this is what the question is, what it doesn't say is that the whole state of Israel is illegitimate. What it doesn't say is that. What Jesus is saying, those who persecute his people, those are the synagogue of Satan. So the Jews that persecuted Paul, the Jews that persecuted Jesus, it doesn't mean all Jews did, doesn't mean all Jews will do it. However, we do believe that, that there are Jews who are against the gospel. Paul talked about that, as well as Gentiles who are against the gospel. But it's not to say that the state of Israel, or the people of Israel, or the Jews are going to be eliminated because they're the synagogue of Satan. That's been a teaching that's been around. It's totally anti-Jew, anti-Jewish, and anti-Semitic. What Jesus was referring to was that the persecution. Of course, and ultimately what David said, if they don't believe in Jesus, ultimately they'll be like the Pharisees. They'll be the children of the devil, just like Gentiles who don't believe in the gospel will be that as well for them. So,
Marco, God has always seen the Jews, even when they were scattered as a nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in their worst sins, there was always a remnant.
They were always a nation to him.
Yeah. It'll always be a nation before him.
And always will be a nation. And so people have to look at it that way. And because he still wants to fulfill his promises to them, and he will come back. He will rescue them at one of the worst times in their history. And we will usher in new age after that. So,
read Jeremiah 31. I think that'd be a good place to start. Jeremiah 31 in relation. This is for Jay. Jay, is Ken's Corner on temporary hiatus? Or will it just be quarterly or bi-monthly? I saw you selling equipment online.
Yes, I currently do have some old components from a computer online, but that does not mean that Ken's Corner is going anywhere. All that means is that Ken's Corner is actually going to be taping this Monday. So you will have an episode in the coming week.
Nice.
So, to answer your question of the frequency, it's supposed to be every 2 weeks. but you can't hold me to that. It depends on Ken's schedule and my schedule coming into alignment.
Yes. Yeah. See how rumors start? Terrible rumors. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting out of the computer game.
Yeah, but Ken's still good. Ken's corner is still good. So praise the Lord. And one more. This is sort of a statement question. Let me see if I can decipher here. That's what worries me about praying for the peace of Jerusalem. How can we pray into a false peace? So I guess the question would be...
So you're praying for Jesus' eternal peace of Jerusalem, because she will come down like a jewel. That's what we're ultimately going to see. I mean, you're not praying for the Jewish temple that's going to be Antichrist temple or that. You're praying for the overall peace of Jerusalem and the fulfillment of God's promises for Israel. Now, don't see what's happening. I think he's thinking in time and not in eternity. Does that make sense? If you're just thinking what's right here in front of you, we're thinking about down the road, the ultimate fulfillment of all God's promises to the Jews, so that they will have the eternal peace and enter into their rest, which Paul talks about, and Joshua was promised and things. So that's the peace that we want, the one when they will be found in their Messiah.
There is no peace without the Prince of Peace. There's no peace without Jesus. So when we're praying for peace of Jerusalem, we're praying that Jesus would come and usher in his eternal peace, because he promised for believers, at least now, we have his word, we have his spirit, and we have his peace. That peace has not, it's for believers. We have the peace in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of trials. One day that peace will be on the earth completely, with no wars. He will judge among the nations, and the nations will war no more. They will learn war no more, and they will be under his authority and ruleship, and ultimately in the New Jerusalem forever and ever. So we do pray for that peace. That ultimate peace is going to come when he comes. But we also understand that there will be no peace until he comes. There's wars and desolations are determined until the end, Daniel says.
Oh, the end.
Wars and rumors of war. These things are going to continue to happen, but the believer can have the peace, and the Jewish believers can have the peace if they have Yeshua, if they have Jesus within them. And ultimately, yes, he will bring peace, because he will destroy all nations that will come against his people, and the enemies of God will be vanquished. There's so many verses about that. So that's the peace we want for Jerusalem, because that's going to be his city. He's going to rule and reign from that city. Right. And ultimately,
he is the peace.
He is the one who brings the peace. Absolutely. He is peace. So thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, Jay and Davey. Appreciate you staying with us. And since we're all, I guess, on the American time now, we can't say goodnight to Jacob. He's probably already in bed in New York. So pray for him. He's ill. He's teaching tomorrow. And for all those who are watching and those who will watch later, we thank you for staying up with us in England and Europe and all across the Europe. It is late. Get to bed. For those in Australia, New Zealand, on that side of the world, Philippines, Asia, it's more Saturday morning. Have a good time today. Good morning. And for the rest of us, East Coast and the West Coast, have a great evening. Keep preaching Jesus. God bless you guys.
Amen. See you again soon.
Hello, and thank you for watching Morial TV. There are so many things that are happening at Morial Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan to India to Africa and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.